where we are with the cam follower refurbishment, we're welded up, but we've welded up with that hard facing rod, and I'm just working on grinding the curve at the moment. The 1.25 inch radius on these is actually quite easy to get to. If you set a peg up like that in the vise, drop that on there and scribe a circle at the tip of that foot with the peg sat back in there, then that circle ends up at, if by magic, 2.5 inches, so 1.25 inch radius. So the way of getting the radius is already kind of built into the cam follower by using that back edge as a pivot point and the slot as a guide. But there's a caveat to that. Not all of the cam followers are exactly the same, and I think some are probably pattern, some are possibly genuine. Most seem to work out about that point there, but you do have to make a few little tweaks. I've had over here, I posted this on Instagram earlier today, I don't know when this video will go out, my Mark 1 radius device on the whetstone grinder, just basically a sort of loose bolt, just nipped up with the nut underneath there, and able to do that with it to get the radius, and it gave a good finish. The downside is we're at sort of 55-60 Rockwell on these tips, and as you can probably see there, it's wearing the stone away quite rapidly. This is only really designed for light honing, but I've got sort of adjustment there to move it in and out, and then I've got that to give me the radius, and it's just literally a cobbled together bit of angle iron and flat bar, a few bits lying around in the scrap bin. On the belt sander, I've done a Mark II version. Again, this can slide in and out on that groove, and there's a pivot point. It's just a dowel with a close fitting hole in it, and you can bolt the follower to it, but you've actually got to get it in quite a careful position, else you end up with a lopsided radius on it. So not massively successful, probably need to make it a bit more accurately. So that's a 6mm dowel, I need 8mm pin, so I've put that little piece of 6x8 stainless tubing on there, and I get a follower. Then that follower pop over there again, and there, once we're up to our back radius point, we've got our correct curve, providing that the centre of that pin is 1.25 inches from the face there to set our radius. If we move that pin any closer, our radius is going to change. So this was the idea of the other little piece, to try and keep the pivot point constant but move the feed in, so you get to allow for the length of the follower to be slightly different. We're only talking 10-20 thou or something, probably well within the tolerance of the tappet adjustment. So I'll do a little bit of fettling on this one, and we'll see what we end up with. As you can see, I've already had one go, and it's quite difficult to get a build up correctly on the edge, because it just sort of falls away. So I've had to sort of redo it. What effect that's having on the hardness, I don't know as yet. We'll find out in a bit. Okay, so a quick shot of the action, so to speak. Well, that's horrendously noisy. That's a coarse grind. This is I can't remember what grit it is, but this is a cubic zirconia belt, a zircon belt. It's quite good for hardened materials. So yeah, that's coming on. Needs a little bit of fettling at the back there. Now to do the edge there, I'll do that in the little lathe. I'll show you a quick bit of that one. We'll set the cam follower up in a collet block, 3/4 inch, and in the tool post there, if you can see it, we've got a CBN inserted tool. I think I've showed these before. These are my little lathe, CCMT 06024 CBN. Again, cubic boron nitride tools for hard turning of they'll turn bearings and things. I've used them on I turned a Vor conrod width down that was wrong, 4-stroke conrod with these, so they'll do some pretty high Rockwell hard turning. I can't get the camera in as I'm set up at the moment for the best of shots. My head will probably end up in the way. But effectively, with a little bit of careful work, that'll take that down, and it'll look something like something along them lines. If that focuses without the background there. When it's done, that's got to be ground down a little bit more, possibly built up a little bit more just on the edge yet. But yeah, the hard turning insert will give us that curve there. So after the turning, we're ending up with the foot sort of reformed again like that. So there's our coarse grind off the belt sander. It's not perfect on the edges or on the back, but we'll now give it a bit of a finishing or semi-finishing go on this. There's a sliding cam follower again. The distance there is set to there, so we get the correct radius, and I'm just going to give it a very light go on there. Just as a finishing or semi-finishing, because I want to I want to polish these rather than leave them the coarse sort of finish that BSA did. I'll check as I go along. Zoom in a little bit. There we go. After a bit of a go with the wet stone grinder, the surface is coming along nicely. A couple of little shadows still to clean up. Ideally, this stone wants to be suitable for hard material, so it's not wearing away as fast as I'm doing these. The next question is going to be, what effect has the heating had on this bit? Well, the ones I've tested, they're still hardened. I'm going to look into whether I need to heat treat now to get them back to where they should be. So we have got a bit of a plan for that should we need it. Should we need to heat treat, we've got a little kiln from London. This came from off eBay. I'll just get to the badge there. It's technicalsupermarket.com or kilnsandaccessories.com. They're on eBay, I think they're on Amazon, all the usual approvals, made in the UK, and it came from London. Very good company to deal with, and we'll give this a go. If not on these, certainly in the future on some little heat treatment projects. Interior space isn't massive. It's 7 inches by 4 inches deep, 4 inches high. There's a couple of little shelves going there as well, but for little things like cam followers, bushes, etc., it's ideal. There's no ramp and soak and all that sort of programming times available. I suppose if you change the controller for a little bit more fancy one, that's also doable. So that's a little tiny tabletop kiln. For the curious there, just done the Rockwell on that follower, we've come out at 55 Rockwell, so I'm happy with that. And just as a sanity check, I'll just do a quick calibration check of this. I've got various calibration blocks just to verify the tester, and I know from previous ones the various blocks I've got, including a proper Wilson Rockwell set, that we generally come out about right within a Rockwell or so. On Rockwell C scale we're on. .1 ish, and we can see that on there, 62.1. So we know our reading for our cam follower is right at 55. Rockwell C. For setting our distance of the pin from the grinding wheel face to give us our 1.25" radius, we've got the diameter of the pin 5/16, halve that to give us the centre point, which is 5/32, in decimal inches 1.250 minus 0.15625 gives us a distance from there to there of 1.09375, or in metric 27.78. If you're following that, so to set our distance, we've got a couple of gauge blocks of 1 inch and 0.9 there, if they can be seen. So them stacked up, and then for final finishing I'm using the tool and cutter grinder, because I wasn't getting very satisfactory results with the whetstone grinder. So that distance there is then blocks in there to the face, and that should give us our 1.25" radius on the face for final finishing. So now, using the cutter grinder, we can drop that on the peg. We know we've got our distance set correctly. And I can do the final finishing operation in that manner. This one's got to have a little bit more built up on it. We're a little bit far away from there. We're going to put a bit more on that yet. Okay, as they say, here's one we prepared earlier. This is after the finish on the tool and cutter grinder, which could probably do with a slightly finer stone on it, but I can actually hand polish that to a fine finish. And on the shadow graph, on there already, I've got one of the new cam followers, and if we put that on there, again ignoring the very edges there because of how it falls away on the picture, we've got a curve. And then if we put one of our reprofiled, refaced followers on the other side, and we flip that around, again, as I say, ignoring the, bring that down a little bit, just away from that bad bit on the screen, ignoring the extreme edges of feathering, we are there again. So ignore them bits because it's just not in focus on the screen. So we know that we've followed the radius and we've got all that correct, and we've already tested the hardness, so we're about there. One final check I want to do, which will probably be in the next episode, is just overall length.